It was always the same time, 3:33 a.m. Not 3:32, not 3:34, exactly. 3:33, glowing softly on the little digital clock by her bedside. Claire first noticed it a few weeks after her 69th birthday. She hadn't changed anything in her routine. She ate light dinners, took her walks, kept her phone outside the bedroom. But slowly, without warning, she began waking up at 3:33 a.m. every night. At first, she thought it was coincidence. But when it happened the fourth night, then the seventh, then the 12th, she sat up in bed, heart calm but unsettled, and whispered, "Why is it always the same time?" The room was silent. No traffic outside, no dreams to recall. She didn't feel afraid. She didn't feel sick, but she felt something. A presence, a memory rising, a feeling she couldn't name. It wasn't noise that woke her. It wasn't pain. It was something quieter, like a whisper just beneath consciousness. She looked at the clock again, 3:33, and for the first time she didn't roll over. She sat with it. Claire had always been a practical woman, a teacher, a mother, a wife for nearly 40 years. She didn't believe in signs, but there was something about that number. Something about how it showed up, not once, but over and over again, in the stillest part of the night that made her stop and wonder, is this random, or is something trying to reach me? We often brush off patterns like this. We call them quirks of biology, shifts in hormones, side effects of aging. And yes, sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes the body isn't restless. The heart is. Sometimes what wakes you at 3:33 a.m. isn't a full bladder or a sore back, but a piece of unfelt emotion that has waited quietly for years, hoping one day you'd be still enough to feel it. Claire didn't feel panicked when she woke. She didn't even feel sad, but she did feel like something was unfinished. A thought, a goodbye. A regret that had grown roots but never found a voice. That night she whispered, "What do you want me to know?" She didn't hear an answer, but she felt something loosen, something shift. A knot in her chest she hadn't realized was there. Softened. You see, 3:33 a.m. isn't just a time on the clock. It's a threshold, a moment when the veil between your outer life and your inner truth is at its thinnest. It's when your soul, long ignored in the busyness of the day, finally finds room to speak, not in words but in presence. And that repeated wake-up call, that rare pattern. It may not be asking for sleep. It may be asking for release, because unresolved emotion doesn't vanish with time. It tucks itself quietly into corners of your breath, your belly, your sleep, until it knows you're ready. And for some women, readiness doesn't arrive in the daylight. It comes in the silence of 3:33 a.m. Still here? Then you already know this isn't just about sleep. In the next part, we'll explore how repeating patterns like waking at the exact same time might not be random at all. Because sometimes a message isn't loud, it's precise. Claire never told anyone about the clock. It felt too strange, too small to bring up in casual conversation, but too persistent to ignore. Every night that same number blinked in the dark. 33. It was like something was trying to get her attention, but not in a way she'd ever experienced before. It wasn't fear, it wasn't urgency. It was a feeling of precision, the same minute, the same moment, again and again. She started writing it down. Just a simple note in a small notebook she kept by her bed. 3:33 again, 3:33 again. Sometimes she'd write how she felt. Sometimes just a word, still weird. Open sad, and slowly a pattern began to form. Not just in the time, but in the texture of those moments. Each time she woke, a memory surfaced. Some nights it was her mother humming in the kitchen. Other nights it was her first miscarriage, the one no one knew about. Sometimes it was nothing but a deep ache in her chest, like her body was remembering something before her mind could catch up. That's the thing about emotion. It doesn't always speak in sentences. It speaks in symbols and patterns and repetition. And when something repeats, especially with that kind of mathematical exactness, you have to ask, what's being mirrored back to me? In numerology and many spiritual traditions, 3:33 is known as a wake-up code, a divine nudge, a moment of alignment between the physical and the spiritual, a time when your body, mind, and soul come into subtle sync and something long buried begins to surface. But it's not just mystical, it's also emotional. You see, unresolved feelings don't disappear, they adapt. They hide behind roles and responsibilities. They show up in restlessness, in dreams, in tiny disturbances, like always waking at the same time, because your body knows what your mind avoids. It holds grief in the chest, guilt in the belly, fear in the shoulders, regret in the throat. And sometimes it sets an internal clock to say, it's time not to panic, not to analyze, but to feel, to listen. Claire began to see 3:33 am, not as disruption, but as invitation. An open doorway, a chance to sit with herself, not to fix anything, but to simply be with what was rising. Some nights she'd breathe deeply and say a name. Other nights she'd light a candle and just sit in the silence. Not praying, not meditating, just being still with herself, no roles, no answers, no masks. And in that stillness, she began to feel something unexpected. Relief. Not the kind that comes from sleeping through the night, but the kind that comes from no longer running, from no longer suppressing what was never meant to be buried. 3:33 a.m. became a kind of mirror, not showing her what was wrong, but reflecting what was ready. Because sometimes the soul doesn't need therapy or talk. Sometimes it just needs permission to be heard. Still with me. In the next part, we'll explore why waking at the same time every night, whether it's 2:22, 3:33, or 4:44, may not be your body's failure to sleep, but your soul's pattern of reaching out. Because when something repeats that precisely, it's not a mistake, it's a message. The more Claire leaned into the stillness of 3:33 a.m., the more she noticed something unexpected. It wasn't just the time that repeated, it was a feeling, a kind of nudge in her chest, a soft pull behind her eyes, a knowing not loud, not urgent, but undeniably present. And once she stopped dismissing it as coincidence, she began to realize the pattern was the point. You see, we are taught to fear repetition, especially in sleep. Waking at the same hour every night. That's bad. That's insomnia. But what if it's not? What if it's your body's way of creating space? What if it's your soul's way of saying, this is the only time you're quiet enough to hear me? In the stillness of those moments, patterns become portals, because nothing repeats without meaning. Rain doesn't fall every afternoon without a shift in the sky. Birds don't migrate without a reason, and your body doesn't wake you at 3:33 a.m. every night unless something is moving beneath the surface. Whether you call it your subconscious, your intuition, or your spirit, it doesn't matter. What matters is this: something inside you is rising, and it's choosing repetition because you're not listening during the day. Claire didn't need scientific proof to believe this anymore. She had lived it each time she woke at that hour and stayed present, still not resisting something surfaced. A memory, a phrase, a forgotten truth. And each time she ignored it, pushed it down, rushed back to sleep, distracted herself, the number came back like clockwork, like a whisper with a rhythm. 3:33, 3:33, 3:33. It was almost beautiful in its persistence. And so Claire made a quiet decision. She would no longer fight the pattern. She would honor it. Not every night, not with pressure, but with presence. Because something happens when you stop treating these moments as accidents. They become conversations. Between your past and your present, between your body and your heart, between the version of you who survived life and the one who still longs to feel it fully. The truth is, patterns don't just happen. They reflect something you haven't resolved or something you've been chosen to see. And sometimes what repeats isn't there to trap you, it's there to free you. Still here with me? Then you're already beginning to feel it, that this isn't just about time, it's about timing. In the next video, we'll explore exactly that. Why waking at the same time every night might be the most precise message your body and soul have ever sent. Because if it's happening night after night, it's not random, it's personal, and it's time you heard it.